Everybody, thanks for coming. Okay, got it. Thanks everybody for coming. This is the February meeting of NCCC. So our usual Zoom pileup this time. Not going to try to mitigate it at all. Oops, why am I not advancing? Wrong arrow. Okay, so this time just going to call CQ and see who answers. CQ, this is WD6T stroke P5.
Kilo uniform 6 Foxtrot.
Whiskey Echo 6 Zulu.
Alpha Japan
Alpha
6
Echo
Victor.
6 Juliet Victor stroke
Whiskey
1.
6 Florida Bravo.
I don't need
Alpha
it.
2 Foxtrot Hotel Foxtrot.
I got WE6Z AE6JV stroke 1 and something Foxtrot Hotel Foxtrot.
Okay, Kilo
And
Echo
6
8 Fox Tango.
8 Tango Radio.
November 6 Delta Echo.
Kilo
Kilo
uniform
Alpha
6
6 Bravo
Foxtrot.
India Mike.
And 6 Whiskey Mike.
Foxtrot
Alpha Japan
Hotel
6 Victor.
Foxtrot.
Bravo Sierra 7 Hotel.
Okay, I got N6. I got N6DE, Ka6BIM, N6WM. I think PJ6 Victor.
N6RO.
Got him. N6RO. There was a Tango Radio.
Kilo uniform 6 Foxtrot.
8 Tango Radio.
KU6.
November
Foxtrot.
0 Kilo Quebec.
November Zero Kilo Quebec. Well, who is the Tango Radio again?
8 Tango Radio.
K8 Tango Radio.
Up.
November 6 November Zulu.
W7 India Victor.
W7
5.
Victor.
WU6X.
W6X.
Whiskey
Kilo
Alpha
6
2
Tango
Foxtrot
Quebec.
Hotel Foxtrot.
Is that WA6 Fox Hotel Foxtrot?
Whiskey Alpha 2 Foxtrot Hotel
WA2
Foxtrot.
FHF.
Bravo Sierra 7 Hotel.
Something 7. Oh, yeah. Bravo Sierra 7 Hotel. There's a local.
Three Yankee 0. 3 Yankee 0 Victor.
Okay, 3 Victor.
KA6W.
Again,
Kilo 6 Tango Quebec.
K6TQ.
6W.
Something ending in W.
KA6W. Thanks, guys.
KA6W. Got it.
Kilo Golf 6 Alpha Oscar.
Lima.
Some Kilo Golf 6 Alpha Oscar, I think.
Right. That's
November
correct.
Whiskey 6 Papa.
NW6P.
WX5S.
WX5S.
Whiskey 6 Florida Bravo.
November 6 something Bravo.
Whiskey 6 Foxtrot Bravo.
And November 6 November Zulu.
November
Not
6
that
November
fluffy
Zulu.
bunny.
W6FBN6NZ.
N611.
Are you going to QSL via LOTW?
Yeah.
Ah, who needs it?
Okay, I think, is that everybody? Anybody else?
I want MOL.
I think everybody else already has P5.
India 1 Mike Oscar Lima.
Mike
Yeah.
Lima. What's your prefix?
I 1. Italy 1.
Italy 1. Mike Oscar Lima. Molto bene.
I'm so grateful to say I do not need that.
K6RIM out.
What was that one?
Whiskey 8 Romeo Juliet Lima.
Okay, W8RJL.
Yep.
Anything else?
November
NA
5 Kilo Oscar.
NA60. November 5 Kilo Oscar.
Whiskey Uniform 6 Papa.
Something ending Papa.
Whiskey Uniform 6 Papa.
Again?
Whiskey Uniform 6
Oh, WU6 Papa. Yeah.
A2KW Portable QRP.
Again? What was that? What was that? The
Kilo 2 Kilo
QRP.
Whiskey QRP.
I got the QRP. The QRP again. All right. I think that's everybody.
N6RK,
Okay. N6RK. Got that.
N6 Kilo Tango.
N6KT.
611.
Something 611. Is that a CB call?
N6XI.
Oh, NA6XI. Okay.
Oh, that's cool, actually. I like it.
It's a lot harder because everything seems to squelch everything else. I know it doesn't mix quite the way sideband mix. Anyway, let's move along here. Okay, so here's the agenda, the usual kind of thing. I'm going to do a little bit of business, and then we're going to have the contest update, but Andy can't make it, so I'm going to just do his slides. And then we're going to have our featured presentation with Kevin Rowett, K6, Mark Aker, K6UFO, the emergence of a new hilltop M2 station, K6 MTU, in a location known to many South Bay ops, is the title they chose. Okay, now I wanted to mention life membership. Used to be that dues were required and you could pay once for $250 and never pay again. Now dues are optional, but you're still welcome to join for $250, or it's optional, I guess. But life membership is officially free if you are greater than 80 years old or have been a member greater than 20 years. And N6ZFO just applied for life membership because he just turned 80. So congratulations. Bill is also retiring from editing the Jug because he has a lot going on in the observatory that he works at, which means we need a new Jug editor. So Roberto, K6KM, who edits his LARC, Livermore Amateur Radio Club newsletter, has graciously agreed to take over for a little while, just to get us through this period, because we still have to get out the December, January, and February issues. But he can't take it on permanently, so we need somebody else to do that. So if anybody's online that is interested, please contact me.
I'd be interested in helping with the Jug.
Oh, terrific. Okay, great. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay, now April is not next month, but the month after is the awards meeting, which means you're going to be getting a ballot sent to you soon through email. So please look out for it, and we could always use more responses. We need.
Do we have a slate?
No, this is the ballot for things like Contester of the Year, Rookie of the Year.
Oh, okay.
These kind of awards. I'm going to get to the other thing in a second. Operating Excellence Awards, the Iron Butt Award, and any other new awards that you think we need to have. Also, I wanted to mention the 5 Meg Point Award, which is a one-time lifetime award for getting 5 million points total in any number of contests. Don't have to be basically any contest. And it's pretty much the honor system. You just give us a list and say, I did these contests, and you get a nice plaque. So if you don't already have one and you want one, please contact Byron N6NUL. Now there's only 2 more KB contests left in the KB contest. So here's what we have now. In the bronze division, it looks like N6GQ is killing it, but you never know. In the silver, W6DMW is way in front.
Woohoo!
And he did 20. I just want to say he did 25 contests, which has to include some CW contests. So good for you. Now in the gold category, we have 2 people neck and neck, WX5S and K6AW. So we'll see what happens there. And in the platinum category, W7IV has completely obliterated all competition, but the rest of us, the next 3 are right next to each other. So we'll
Hooray
see.
for Out of Circle.
Yeah, right. That's the problem. Okay, now we'll turn it over to the virtual Andy. Let's see. Show play from start. Okay, so here's Andy's report. So, whoops. Where do you round up? Wait a minute. That doesn't look right. This is the wrong one. That was from last month. Sorry about that. Here's the right one. Okay. There we go. So discussion of the WPX RIDI that just happened. We're going to talk a bit about the sprint. Very briefly, the CQ160, and then some upcoming contests. Okay, so this is the preliminary results, of course, for the WPX RIDI contest, and we had a lot of good turnout. So here's the single band high power, single op all band, high power scores that had more than 1 million points. So right in front is KK6P W7IV with 3.2 million, then W7RN at 2.8 million, and WK6I. I'll just give the operators call signs. Then W0YK had 2.5 million at the K6 MTU station that we're going to hear about. AD6E had 2 million, and now I don't know if that counts or not. I mean, he resides in San Jose, I've heard. So N6IE is 1.5 million. K6
It does count. It does count.
Okay, good. KA6BIM 1.5 million. AG1RL, which is W1SRD. That's probably the best WPX.
Doris.
1.3 million, and AJ6V 1.1 million. So that's a pretty nice turnout. We had nearly 60 club scores as of Monday night reported. So great job, everybody. Now, in the single band category, there were some outstanding results here from the N6RO crowd. N6RO Ken himself got on, he says, for the most QSOs that he's made in a long time. And on 10 meters, he had 636 QSOs, 324 mults, for 332K points and a probable North America win. And in 15 meters, N6WM was on with over 1,000 QSOs, 494 mults, and 901K points, also for a probable North America win. So congratulations to both of those guys. Also, K6AW was on 20 meters with 792K. And Matt WX5S was on 40 for 898K, and W6DMW did 80 meters and got 350 Qs with 176K points. Okay, now the sprint. This is a couple weeks old, seems like ancient history, but just to remind everybody, we really don't know if we won or not, our team, because it was way too close to call between the Gulf Coast Cats, who have well-known sprinters like N3BB and K5 Tango Radio and KZ5D, and the NCCC crowd. And there's also the Southern Sprint Coalition, which has 70,000 points. So they could also conceivably win, depending on the accuracy of the other two teams. So we'll have to wait till that gets sorted out. Andy put this together, I guess, just showing that we had fewer mults this year than last year, for whatever reason. And briefly, the 160 meter contest happened a bit ago, and let's see. So I was on with Ken and Steve for a multi-single. We had 817 Qs. Conditions weren't very good, and also. Another hilltop station, W6 NV's station, was on with Danny also, and they had 714 Qs. Other noteworthy scores: N6JV had 522 Qs for single op high power, and single op low power W6JTI had 340 Qs.
Hi, this is N6RK. You're not listing me there. I actually beat W6JTI in SOLP.
Oh, you did? For some reason, I missed you. I'm sorry. How many? Do you remember how many Qs you had?
It wasn't a whole lot more Qs, but I had so many. I had a lot of. I worked 47 JAs, and so my score was quite a bit higher.
Oh, okay. Well, good for you. Sorry about that. This was done a little too quickly, I guess. All right, some upcoming contests. We've got the ARL DXCW this weekend, and the little star means it's a KB contest. The weekend after that is the CQ 160 meter sideband for the real men in the group, or I should say the gender neutral, the real gender neutral heroes. How about that? Okay.
Careful, you almost got canceled there.
You're so nice.
Okay, next one is actually the same weekend, I guess, is NAQP Ready, which can be a fun one. And those are the last two KB contest. So after that, it'll be all decided what I showed before. Next is the first KB contest in the next year's running of the thing, which is going to have the same contest as this year, I think, with the addition of a couple of Asian contests. So we'll get a published version of that list pretty soon. The Riddy Sprint is the weekend after that, as well as the Stu Perry. And then at the end of March is another focus contest, the WPX phone.
Could I put a shameless plug for the ARRL DX SSB? I'm having some challenges getting some photographs from people, and I have to do the write-up from that. It's kind of a privilege to be able to do the write-up for that contest from the West Coast, and Ward Silver was the one that recommended that I do that. And I'd love to get some photos for my write-up from people. So, if you could put it in the back of your head, if you operate the ARRL SSB contest, take some photos, preferably of you operating or your team, and I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. This is just a random slide that I wanted to throw up while we're going into the ARRL DX contest. Is, we tend to think of like South America is South America, it's easy. But look at the distances. Okay, Tokyo's 5,000 miles roughly. Oslo is about the same. London is only slightly more. EA8, which is of course much easier typically than Oslo or London, is a little further. Buenos Aires is 6,400 miles. New Zealand's about the same. Rio de Janeiro is about the same. Melbourne's about the same. Now here's a hard one. Mumbai is 8,000 miles. But Cape Town, which is pretty easy, and 40 meters in the afternoon, you hear them like rag chewing practically these days, is 10,000 miles. So I just a reminder that it's not just about distance, it's about polar paths and things like that. Not to mention activity, of course. Going on. Okay, our March meeting, we're going to do some preparation for WPX phone, look at the propagation forecast and look at some rate sheets from previous years, etc. Maybe have some other talks too. And it's going to be on a Saturday for a change. It's one of the few weekends that doesn't have any major contests, so we're going to take that opportunity to do it on Saturday. Okay, now in preparation for this for today's talk, I just wanted to say a bit about hilltop stations, which have a special magic, and in chronological order. As far as I know, in the Bay Area, we had first Dave Leeson's station, W6NL, and then Oliver's station, W6NV, and then the K6LRG station with N6WM and others, which has now gone through some renovations, is back on the air. Then a K6MTU, which we're going to hear about today, with K6TD and K6TU and others were part of that. And most recently, I think W6SRR that Gary and Ian put together. And maybe your station is the next hilltop station that'll help NCCC get over the top. And with that, our feature presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Kevin, who I hope is on. You hear Kevin?
Now let's got it. Yes, okay. Let's see. I got to get this to a view that works better. Don't want that.
That's a slideshow.
It doesn't work so good on a Mac.
Huh.
Play from start. Let's see if that works. Can somebody give me a report about how good that shows?
Looks good.
Looks excellent.
All right, great. I've completely lost all the Zoom controls as usual. So, okay. Let's see, I need to get one screen back. Sorry, I'm going to have to do something different here. All right, well, I'll have to wing it. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss K6MTU. Mark and I will be making this presentation. We've kind of split it up in that I'll talk about the station and Mark will talk about operating from the station. So here we go. If maybe, let's see, is the next slide. Yes, next slide. Okay. So I'm sort of going to tell this station through pictures because it's quite dramatic at the station, as W6NL knows, being in a very similar location to us. This is our 160 meter flat top dipole as viewed from the camera on top of the tower. This was when the last storm came through. We had that much ice build up on the antenna, on the 160 meter antenna. And it held up and still working very well. So that's the opening scene for us. We primarily have one tower at this point that we have our antennas on. It's a Roan 65, buried pretty deep in the concrete, 95 feet tall with a 3-inch OD mast sticking out of it. We have two JK mid tri-banders, one at 43 and the other at 95 feet. And you can see the element count on there if you're not familiar with that antenna. We have separate rotators for the mid versus the 43 foot versus the 95. And then at the very top, we have a 4 element 40 meter antenna with a 36 foot boom on it. We like that antenna a whole lot, and 40 meters. And then this is all driven by Kurt's prop pitch rotors. And you'll see in a little bit, Kurt did most of this. There's a picture of the antennas, as you can see. This is an interesting light for it. Don't remember exactly how we managed to get that light, but there's the antennas. You can see the ring rotor right there for the mid one. We have a weather vane up there. And the higher mid tries there, and then the 40 meter element is up there. This is a bit of a fish eye shot, so there's a lot of things that show up in it that aren't nearly as big as they look like they are in this picture. This picture here, you can see more of the antennas. The one on the left is a little bit older picture when we had a DB36, or sorry, it was a DB18 at the top of the tower for 40 meters. That ultimately didn't work out, so we replaced it. And then this is another one showing up. And there is, in this picture here, you can see the microwave link that we've done to W0YK's place. And then here's a picture at night. We do get very good night pictures up there. So kind of more interesting too. And obviously we have a lot of cameras up there so we can see what's going on when we're not there. This is a picture of all of the antennas that we have presently up, shown from another mountain that I'll show you where the location is. It's about a little less than a mile away. It's Tomita Peak if you're familiar with the area. But you can see the towers are a 4 square. You can see our main tower. And then this is the top of what we call the DBD antenna. And over here is the orange sock, airport sock. Those last about 3 years up there before we have to replace them. Next picture here is one of our nice shots, older shot, but you can see the fog sort of coming in and the road going up. And for WD6T, I put one of our older pictures in here with where we had an eagle that landed on the top antenna and surveyed the landscape from down there. We've not seen the eagle for a couple, 3 years now, but he did visit us regularly. He was a regular inhabitant of the 185 foot tower that's not far from us. But then when we put ours up, he decided that it was fun to watch from ours. Different selection of food, I think. Other antennas, we have an 80 meter 4 square that does have pattern problems. NA60 has done some effort to help us fix it, but needs to get done. As I showed in the lead-in picture, we have a 160 meter flat top dipole. That's a recent addition. We're not exactly after doing our very best in winning contests at 160 meters. We mostly put it in to make sure that we would pick up all the multipliers that we could in a contest. That said, it's done good in the 160 meter contest, but not outstanding. For the DXers among us, we have a 17 meter and 12 meter Moxon on the short tower, as we call it. And you saw a picture of that. And then we also have this thing that we call a dual band disc cone that AA7A designed originally for the beacons. And it's only good for 20 meters and shorter. And there is a picture of the DBD disc cone, dual band disc cone. And that's the received testing one that we have at our site, but so 2 of the beacon sites, we have those put up as well, just FYI. And this gives you a broader view of the entire area that exists up there. The short tower is over here. This is what we call the generator shed, and you can see the propane tank back there. And this is the main building that has the 185-foot tower on it. That's all commercial.
Is this for receiving beacons or transmitting beacons?
It's used for transmitting on beacons. We use it for receiving.
Oh, so the new beacon antennas are going to be this cone kind of thing for the NCDXF beacon?
That's the idea.
Okay.
And you can see the NextRad National Weather Service radar in the background there. Again, this is also taken through a bit of a fisheye, so the distances are not nearly as long as they look. And I have a few more pictures of that. And then the last picture is not the last, or this is the Foursquare for 80 meters. We have rebuilt this thing 4 times, and the current one has managed to stand for about 4 years now. So we believe it's going to stay. It's round 25, 67 feet each. And then in the very middle, we have a DX Engineering phase matching thing, and then stubs that go out to each of them of we hope the right length. This antenna overall has pattern problems. Gary pointed out to me it's more than likely the fact that we did not put a ballon to keep the feed lines from acting as part of the field. So we have to get that corrected. And we know that 2 of the antennas are tuned to the wrong frequency. So we have to get that fixed as well. And it's all elevated radials, so we can drive a truck in underneath it to work on them. It does work though. I mean, we've gotten long distance with it. It's just funky pattern. The next one is the Moxon antenna on what we lovingly call the short tower. And obviously primarily for DXing. Let's see, does my cursor work in both places? Yes, it does. What do you know? We've steps on that, and then what you see behind here is our parts field for when we need parts for different things, we can get them. And then this is the generator shed, and then this piece here is one of the support towers for the flat top 160 meter. And then also in this picture here is the support rope coming from the top tower down to support the dipole, the 160 meter dipole. Okay, you haven't seen pictures of it yet, but our main radio equipment is in a container. We run a pair of Flex 6700s, and honestly, these came over on the Mayflower. Their serial numbers are in the single digits. As for everybody amps are ongoing story. We did run a pair of 9500s, managed to blow both of them up. We've repaired one, and the other amp right now is a KPA 1500. But amps come and go. We use the Ranco's Antenna Genius switches. The whole thing is in a 40-foot shipping container. The Green Heritage Engineering RT21 rotators, and then we use wave node power meters. And so that's sort of the other things in the shack. And this is pictures. So it's actually 2 pictures spliced together on the screen. So the left picture shows the primary radio stack. You can't quite see the top radio up here, but the one right below that is there. And then power supply voltages, and then the power supplies, and then we have a UPS there, and then commercial or enterprise grade Ethernet switches and other things. And then the right picture is the back of all of that. Cabling is a major chore. We keep after it, but it does get out of hand. So that's the radios, and you can see at the bottom of the right-hand picture, one of the cameras we have. We probably have a dozen cameras up there, both inside and outside, so we can watch and see everything that goes on if we need to. The next picture, this shows the switches and the bandpass filters and the triplexers. and then some of the control circuitry needed for it. We do manage it via a PI, another switch down here, and then a 4300 single port VNA, and relay control boxes for things that are controlled off screen, and then the two JKs can be phased together. And the next picture is
Kevin, what are those antenna switches?
they are the 403A Antenna Genius switches.
Thanks.
And the filters, the bandpass filters, and the triplexers are the same. Rankos. And just a nice shot of the two parents, proud parents of this thing. The person on the left is Lance K6GSJ. Lance is really the secret weapon for this station. And there's a bit of story about how that came about. I'll talk about that. So that was soon after we got that board put up. We built it in Lance's garage, and then we put it up and put it in service. So fun thing. Here is a picture of the switch matrix that shows how everything is wired up. And the point here is that you do need extensive documentation to keep this thing running, keep any station like this running, but we did document it all so we can trace it out. And this is a block diagram that shows how the radios are interfaced into the world. There's a lot in this diagram, so I won't try and go through all of it, but just to say that we do keep diagrams of everything we do. So we use Raspberry Pis quite a bit for control, and basically each little Pi has a piece of software running on it that creates a message, and it sends it to a NAT server, which is basically a message forwarding service. And then that goes to different places to cause the right things to happen. And it's all interconnected via Ethernet. And then the switch matrix there, and then the wave node sensors at the top, and wave node controllers. It goes to a headless PC, which I'll talk about in a bit. So that's that. This is a picture of the Ethernet in the building. We have a fiber from Cruzio as our ISP, edge router in there, and then we have a firewall box, and then a VPN server, and then we have a pair of Ethernet switches, and then you see around here all the different things we've hooked to it. The NAT server, the headless PC, the two radios. We have a Ethernet link over to Ed's place. And like I said, we have about 12 cameras in here, and then we have different Raspberry Pis running different functions for us in here. We do have an extensive weather station there that reports. We do have a NTP Stratum 1 server, and then this guy is the Foursquare controller. We have a Kiwi SDR as well, and then some of the web switches that you saw in the picture there that we use for control of stuff. Next picture shows a little bit more of the details. So here's the screen that an operator sees when they're controlling the station, sorry, the rotors for the station. So you can basically, click one of these directions, or you can type in a value. And as soon as you click one of these or hit enter, it'll go there. And if that's not where you want to go, you hit stop and redirect it. And so there's, pie slices that show the width of the antenna. It's probably about a 6 dB width, 6 dB down, not 3 dB down. So it actually does better than that. And the way we do that is we've got 3 controllers, and we got a piece of software running on, again, a Pi that listens to these guys or listens to this guy here, and then directs these guys to do things. And again, we run it through a NATS messaging forwarding service, so we can spread this out as we want to. The next item is basically a picture showing the controllers in there and the rack of Pis that we have. And this is the second rack that's in the system in there. And other items in the container.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes, go ahead.
It's John Four. Are you using the Green Heron software to control the Green Heron boxes, or is it all bespoke?
We wrote it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we basically, yeah.
Okay.
And so The other third of the container is devoted to lots of things. And my, my headline is, it's probably in there. We have no running water on site though. So just some of the things in there: Kiwi SDR, weather station. We have a meteor camera on the roof. We have a full earthquake sensor. Interesting item is we have an ADS-B receiver. And that receiver turns out to be the primary receiver for most of the Bay Area for Flight 24, because it obviously sees a whole lot, both directions. We've got a reasonably good workshop. Don't have a welder, but we bring it up if we need to. We have everything else. Stock, GPS, UPS for operating things, and then operating table if we ever operate up there, which we've done once or twice.
You have a porta potty, Kevin?
No, we do not. There is one that's about a little less than a mile drive from us. So if you really need to, there is a way to relieve yourself if you need to up there though. So it's not
goals.
And so here I picture of the Kiwi SDR. That got a lot of listen until one individual decided he was going to continuously record on all 4 channels. And so we had to kind of block it so it has less coverage or less usage than it did before. One guy wrote to me and said, "Damn, I used it for DX listening all the time." Sorry. So a bit about remote. We've always operated the station remotely. There's 1 or 2 contests that we actually ran from there, but for the 10 or 20 contests we've done, it's always been remote. And we have a very good arrangement with our ISP Cruizio. Basically the link is 400 megabits up and down, and it's very symmetric. We hard limit it to 100 meg. We need about 10 or 12. Fiber from our container over to the main tower, then microwave for millimeter wave to Santa Cruz. Like I said, the LAN in the container is very extensive. We have full firewall, lots of PIs and mini ATXs, cameras everywhere, and of course the microwave link to Ed. I didn't notice if Ed was on tonight or not, but Ed, do you have any comments about that link? All right.
I had a question about that link actually, Kevin. This is Chris.
Yep.
So is this Scott McQueen or Sandy Wiedemann you're dealing with here?
I'm not sure what your question is.
The question is, I've had problems with microwave links to some of the hilltop from the McQueen hilltops and the Wiedemann hilltops to get a good solid regular Wi-Fi. Are you using a licensed top or is it an unlicensed top?
We're using 5 gig.
And it's working okay?
Yep. We've done our work to tweak it, and we've had XE2K out to tweak the dickens out of it, and it works very good now.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We've had our share of problems.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was our own installation though. Ed and I did it.
Okay, cool. That's nice to know.
So this is a screenshot of the VNC into the headless PC that's in the shack. And so you can see obviously the two amplifiers, the KPA 1500 control screen on the left and the Alpha 9500 on the right. And then right above that, you can see 4 of the 8 wave node power meters that we have in there in what they call the mini screen. So as an operator, you can watch that continuously and make good use of it. The next item is I want to talk about where the location is. Not everyone knows where Mount Umunhum is if you don't live in the South Bay a whole lot, but it's located right where the red teardrop is there, which is right in the Santa Cruz Mountains. We are, maybe 2 miles from Dave's place. So if you know where Dave's place is, then we're close to it. But overall in the South Bay, that's where we're at. And obviously the most striking feature of that area is the Mount Umunhum blockhouse. Here it is in a terrain relief type picture showing you more stuff. And then here is the picture from a drone. This is taken So this is the road up there, and the road going over to the blockhouse area, which is now, a county park or a mid-peninsula range park. It winds around this way here, and there's the parking lot for it. This is the traditional blockhouse that's been there since the U.S. Air Force was in there. And so our location is right or in the red circle. And so you can see that this picture is a lot more in perspective. You can see the distance from the next rad and the main tower down to our area there. And then you can see the sort of the reddish color of our HF container in there. And this picture is a little old now. We've now extended the fire break considerably more. We're probably a quarter mile from anything that could burn. So, if there's a wildfire up there, that's the place I want to be.
So that 185 tower, that's your tower or the?
No, that's a commercial tower.
Okay. What's on it?
I don't know. I don't do much with it. I don't do anything for it. So we do have full we do have full PG&E power there, and it's also, we have a full backup generator, and we have run 2 weeks without PG&E power. Never missed a beat. Because the tank guy will come by, or the propane guy will come back and refill it when it starts getting low. So
Is that propane?
Propane, yes, it is. And we test it and run it for an hour every Tuesday, roughly around 11 in the morning.
What's the capacity of the generator?
I think it's 75 kilowatts. Could be more than that. I haven't kept track of it.
75 kilowatt generator for a ham station?
No, it also runs the 185-foot commercial tower as well.
Okay, so you're tapped into them.
Yep. Yep.
Kevin, what's the arrangement there? Are you leasing, or what's the cooperative arrangement with the main tower?
That's not something I'm willing to talk about publicly at this time.
Okay.
And besides PG&E, we do have the next rad radar that's as pictured here. It's very prevalent. We have no issues with it in terms of HF. We do have two anerometers on our tower, and the one that's up at the top of the tower, when the radar is in active weather mode, when a storm is in town, it causes it to produce very false readings. But that's the only issue we have with it. They've never complained about us. There is a camera on top of the 185-foot tower, and it blows that camera away. It's gone. So. But that's the only issues we have. So I'm very happy about that. And that's fully contained by itself. It has its own generator, its own support crew. We don't have to do anything other than not run over it. Okay, that's sort of the station. I want to talk a little bit about, our observations. So as everyone knows in real estate, it's location, location, location. So far, what we found with a fixed contest station is there are three variables: antennas, people, and location, but they're not independent. There's a lot of interplay between those. And so we've tried to respect that and make sure that we keep all of that in our forefront. A little bit about how K6MTU came about. Frankly, K6TU, Stu Phillips was struck by a meteor. And by that, I mean K6GSJ Lance was interested in getting an HF station going in that site, but he's a VHF guy. Not everyone knows Lance. Lance is Mr. Oscar. He built Oscar 1 and some of the other Oscars. Very strong VHF and UHF guy and microwave guy, but wanted to see an HF station get built on that site. And so Lance knew Jeff Bear, who's been a silent partner for us, but a very strong silent partner. Jeff knew Stu, and he knows me a little bit, and Stu knew me, and I knew Tom and Mark at K6TU. So, it's sort of, that's how I describe it, as K6TU was struck by a meteor. This all happened in 2014. Oh, that's my next slide. Yeah, let me get on with that. Sorry. So in 2014, we started planning, and in 2015, We actually got with it. As some people may recall, we were still in a pretty bad drought in that wintertime, but we didn't know that was going to happen. So we didn't plan on anything until August 2015. The tower, the 95-foot tower was existing, but it was not guide enough to support the wind loads that we get. We do get, as Dave will testify, we get 100 to 120 mile an hour winds up there. We're not sure we're going to see it that fast this year, but we've come close. But at years past, we've seen 100 mile an hour winds every year. So in August 2015, we re-guided the tower, installed all the antennas, installed the radio gear, and went to town. The rest is history, as they say, but not quite.
Kevin?
Yes.
Dave, our highest measured is 147 3-second gust.
Oh, wow. I don't know if we've ever measured that at Mount Umbunum, but we haven't been up there as long as you have.
Actually, that was measured at McQueen's, but we experienced it. It blew the top off our water tank and heavily winked it over our garage and cut down a tree when it landed.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, as you can imagine, Kurt was heavily involved in the design of this station, and I had to settle a few disputes between him and the antenna makers to make sure that we did meet the new EIA requirements. But when I say the rest is history, every 6 months we're up to something new, or something didn't work, we found it worked, or it didn't and we kept it, or we had to break it, or we had to fix it, or something broke. And almost always because of the wind. And it's interesting, the wind up there causes a tremendous amount of vibration, and that's what nails stuff pretty bad. So we've learned to build with that. A couple pictures. These are from the 2015 original build. You can see the sort of the landscape of the area as well, and the views. This picture is this is K6NA Glenn Ratman and K7NV Kurt, and they're getting ready to accept the fly-in of the tri-bander as it comes in on the crane to mount it to right about where Kurt is standing.
So are those Philistrand guys?
Yes.
Big grips?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it looked like Philistrand with big grips. Yeah.
Yeah, we did Philistrand down to about 8-10 feet, and then we went steel from there.
Yep.
Count for fire. Give you an idea of the perspective. Now, this was taken by a drone that was flown by N6LXA. Let's see if I can get the cursor here. The figure in the red here is K6TU. That's the figure in the white with sort of the skin showing is me, and then the other figure in white with the longer shadow, that's Lance. And we had just strapped on the antenna and helped it get airborne, going up the crane. So that was a fun day. We got all the antennas done in one day. It took us 2 days prior to get the tower ready, but we did it in one day. And then here's another picture. I can't remember exactly what was happening here. I think Kurt was guying up and getting ready for the antenna. Yeah, because it was gone up. We'd flown it up already to him.
Kevin, did you say that red building is the shack?
The one in this picture, the red building, is not the shack. That's the generator shed.
Okay.
And right behind it is the propane tank. And then farther out, the white buildings in the tower is the main tower of the commercial side of this. And then you can see the next red tower behind it. Next picture is, no, I said put it right here, guys. Kind of a funny picture, but some of our construction efforts were interesting. This is when we're in the process of trying to get the 80-meter foursquare done.
On that prior slide, could we see Dave's place
No.
on the left? What was?
No, because the camera fades. The camera resolution isn't good enough.
It's over there somewhere.
It's over there somewhere. So this sort of brown or tannish area with which you can sort of see things sticking up on, that's Tomita, which is maybe a mile and a half at the worst. And then Dave is sort of over this hill here a little bit. Because of the angle of the camera, you can't see it. The resolution wasn't good enough. Okay, back to this picture. This is when we were building the foursquare antenna, and Lance and the hole digger were having a conversation about what to do next. So things we learned. Like I said, build it to the last 20 to 50 years and hopes it makes it through the next winter. We've learned how to do that. It's taken a bit of learning. I will tell you that remoting is hard. Think about doing everything remotely. The one thing we cannot do remotely is factory reset of the radios. And every so often that's a 45-minute drive for me to get there. Need documentation. Got to write down everything. And then, sort of Marty Laney talks about this, but we found it to be very true. The off-track team is as critical as the drivers. And I'll talk about a little bit more about that. But the support team that's needed to keep all this thing functioning is just as important as the operators. There is a lot less RFI up there. It's still a battle. We do have to keep after it. And almost always we find we've done it to ourselves. We added some interesting piece of equipment to the shack, mostly in the shop. And then next thing you know, what's that birdie? So you guys know the operators. Here's the primary people that have operated the station. You may not know Asher. I don't think he's a club member, but he maintains a good station at home. But he's operated with us and enjoyed it. But the other operators, so those are the people that you see all the time. But our support crew is this crew of people. I've mentioned Lance. He's our secret weapon. You describe something and he'll get it done, period. Stu has been the primary engineer in terms of figuring out what to do, the technical mind behind much of this, and still continues to do that today. Stu and I were even talking today about stuff we want to do to improve the station. Hector, most everyone must know Hector, and I couldn't resist just having a shot of him standing on the tower working on something, since that's usually how I know him. Mike Durkett, KB6VN, he's a good, strong VHF and UHF guy. But he comes up very often, helps us with construction projects. Like I said, important piece. Bill, N6IGF. Bill has done a number of projects for us. This picture is cut from when he helped us build the 160-meter flat top, but we had some problems with the two antennas, the two tri-banders, sorry, and Bill brought his drone up there and flew it up there and got us pictures so we could get a better idea of what to tell Hector to do when he showed up to fix them. That was invaluable.
Hey, Kevin, how do you get that 160-meter dipole flat? You mentioned a support rope, and then you have another shorter tower that you're using at the end, and you're dropping the support rope. You're holding it on the support rope.
So we let out enough rope in the upper tower such that the antenna settled to be flat at the 40 foot high level, a little higher than that, but approximately that.
And you figured that that's a better outcome than putting it, doing an inverted V?
Check again in 6 months, I'll tell you.
Okay.
So like I said, it is, we're not trying to be 160-meter champs. We're just trying to make sure we can do molds for 160-meter. And so that antenna has proven to be that good for that. We are on the edge of a cliff, and the antennas perform extremely well.
Sure.
Bill also, he hasn't done it for us, but he's done it for others. He has flying on his drone. He'll fly a detector and sort of give you an interesting pattern picture of what your antenna is doing. And then Jim Hughes, N0NKJ, as you can read, Jim has come up and helped us with many projects as well. So my point is that if you're thinking of this kind of activity, you need the support team just as well. The operators can't do it all. And as most of us have experienced, there's a good balance between people that like to build and people that like to operate. But the support team is just as important. And at this point, I was going to hand it over to Mark. He's going to talk about the operating piece. And then we were going to make sure we left time for questions and whatnot. So, Mark.
Yes, I'm here.
And I think, no, I haven't quit sharing. Stop share. Okay.
Okay, let me find you, Mark, and I'll give you all these little squares. There you
Oh,
are.
hold
Okay,
on.
I got you. There you are. Sorry.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Late co-host. Okay. So you should be able to share now.
There we go. All right. Can you hear me okay and see me okay?
Yep. Good.
Good, thank you. Kevin gets a little break now, and he asked me to make a few comments about operating the station. And I first used the station from Tom ND2T's house back in January 2020.
We don't see your slides.
Oh,
At least I don't.
I'm seeing it.
Yeah, we do.
That's a Kevin's
I see
problem.
it.
Kevin, it's on the
I got
second
it.
screen. Into the
All right.
screen, sorry, second window. That's what I get for being a host. Sorry.
yeah, it's just a Kevin problem.
As usual.
And they'd already been working on the station for several years, but it really started to be in a condition where you could really contest from it in about 2020. I had a great time operating it from ND2T's house, but he had done all the configuration, so it was easy for me. Then COVID hit, we all had to stay home, so I configured my own computer and I started using K6MTU in December 2020, and I've done 8 more contests from there over the next year. K6MTU has a great location and it has great hardware, the incredible potential for great results. We've been getting a lot of good results. Often we're in the maybe the 1st through the 5th place position in multi-single or multi-2 or as a single op, which is really good from the West Coast. This last year when I've been operating there a lot, has been a lot about gaining contest experience with how the station works. We've done a lot of work to simplify and automate the station so it's a lot easier to work. And then there's always finding and fixing a lot of bugs and problems and gotchas. And bug fixing is Kevin K6TD's superpower. As soon as we find something, Kevin's already on it, thinking about it, coming up with a solution. Thank you, Kevin. Looking at just the last few months of contests that were done there, Ed W0YK operated WPX RIDI, made 1,913 QSOs, which is quite a lot. He operated both SO2R and 2-band synchronized interleaf QSOs. The station's fully capable of doing that remotely. Ed also operated the CQ160 CW contest, and even with a little dipole that's only up about 40 feet, he worked 10 DXCC countries. So for a horizontal dipole, it works well enough to work DX countries. If we were really serious about 160, we would go with some kind of vertical antenna and then add some other receiving equipment, which may happen. It's on the list, but the list is very long. People have done the Barchi Sprint, NAQP CW, 794 QSOs, which is very respectable. RIDI Roundup in January, we operated multi-single, 1,495 QSOs, 53 DXCC countries, which was very high on the list in the results for anyone west of the Mississippi. In the FT Roundup in December, I'll make a note that low power, only 100 watts, we still work 45 DXCC countries. People have used it in the CQ Worldwide contests. Back in November, the sweepstakes sideband, they made 1,300 QSOs and a sweep of all the sections. Dave, WD6T, used it for JIDX, also sweepstakes CW. And then going back a couple more months, one I just wanted to note was in CQ Worldwide RIDI, we operated multi-2, made 2,676 QSOs. So the station is really highly capable. It's a matter of the operators needing to get familiar with it, getting used to it, and then pushing it to its potential. The station's been in dozens of the weekly NCCC sprints. Usually either Ed W0YK or Kevin operates that. You saw the usual contest operators in those pictures, and there are really another 8 or 10 people who are casual operators, but really help build and maintain the station. So thank you very much to them. How we contest from there, remember everybody's remote, and maintaining an email list for trying to organize all this would be very hard. So we use the Slack application, and we have these various chat channels to discuss each of the different subjects. Like there's a channel to talk about antennas, or a channel to talk about the automation, a channel to talk about an upcoming contest that we want to participate into. So this lets people, no matter where they are, check in, see what people are saying, respond, sign up for work parties, add comments, report problems, and all that. So we found Slack works pretty well for that. If someone decides they want to enter a contest, they'll usually announce it on the operators channel. If additional people are interested, so that it'll be a multi-operation instead of a single operation, we'll start a Slack channel just for that contest, and we'll open an operator schedule page in a Google Doc. So for the contest, you'll see the hours of the contest are over here on the left. Each of the operators can put their availability in, when they're available, when they're not. Then as we decide who's going to operate which shift, we put them over here on the right-hand side. So in this contest, we were going to be multi-2. We call those two radios radio up and radio down. We would figure out who could be assigned to that operator position and what band we expected them to be on. So by the time of the contest, this will be all filled out, and we know who's going to be operating when. The operator needs all this software on their station or on their computer in order to run the K6 MTU station. This has actually been simplified quite a bit, and it may look like a long list, but some of these things are quite easy, you already have. But let's start with the VPN. You can either use the Windows built-in VPN, or you can use the soft Ether VPN client. This gives you a connection from your computer up to the K6 MTU station as if you were on the local Ethernet LAN up there at the station. Because they're Flex radios, we use the Flex Smart SDR software for Windows. That's version 339. That includes CAT software to give you the rig control and the push to talk and the CW key, and the DAX software to get the digital audio from the station to you and from you back to the station.
Excuse me, the Flex supports CW keying by DTR pin or by WinKey?
They have a WinKey emulator, and I believe you can also key them using a DTR on a serial port, which will open in this CAT system. But the WinKey emulator is what we usually use, and it seems to work quite well. It's not a perfect WinKey, but it's good enough for contest operating. You're not trying to send special pro signs or something, so it seems to work well enough with normal keying from the logging programs. We use a web browser. We kind of prefer Chrome because it works well with that software you saw that controls the rotators and controls switching the 80-meter foursquare. We use Tight VNC Viewer to access that remote desktop up at the station that has the watt meters and the amplifier control software. Right now there's an alpha remote software and the KPA 1500 utility software. As I mentioned, we use Slack in order to coordinate, and even during the contest, we can use Slack to coordinate with the operator on the other radio, to coordinate with the operator who's coming up with the next shift. We have kind of found a preference to use Slack separately on your phone so that you can leave the focus of your computer mouse on the logging program and not have your cursor stuck over on Slack when you need it to be in the logging program.
Mark, say a word about Slack huddles.
Yeah, so Slack itself is mostly a text chat program, but Slack has added an audio conferencing mode called Huddle. And especially on a phone, you can turn on the Huddle, just leave your phone right there next to your computer. When you talk, the other people hear it. If they talk, you hear it. It works pretty well, except when Ed turns on his bench grinder or his table saw or something, and then the Slack audio is kind of bogged down.
I will mention that Slack Huddle is, I believe, only available on a paid version of Slack. A lot of us are using the free version. You'd have to ante up for that.
That could be, I'm not sure. All right. But we found that having a little audio conference works well when the operator's eyes and fingers and mouse should be busy with the logger instead of typing on something else. We usually use WriteLog, and WriteLog is a special driver for Flex radios. You can, of course, also use N1MM if you want onto a serial port to the Flex.
So Mark, are you running WriteLog on the local operator's computer?
Yes, we have each of the operators run his own copy of WriteLog. And the reason is that they can then configure it the way they're used to, you know, whichever windows they want open, how they want the size of the windows and where to position them on the screen, and they can customize their own messages. They can change the setup if they want to enter sends a message or not. If we tried to run WriteLog on a PC at the station, everyone would have to connect to it kind of as a remote desktop, and it wouldn't be as customizable for each of the operator's preferences.
So is there a feature in WriteLog that allows you to network over the internet, all your logs?
We're there. Everybody's on the LAN, on the shack LAN.
So the VPN software makes it appear as if you're right on the same Ethernet network that the radios are at the station. So when these operators connect up by VPN, we actually all look like we're on the same Ethernet network.
Great. Thank you.
The rig control is through the virtual serial port?
The rig control is actually talking, with WriteLog, it's actually talking over the Ethernet, and WriteLog knows how to talk to a Flex radio with Ethernet packets. But the Flex Cat software also gives you a virtual serial port you can use for rig control and push to talk and everything else as well. And in the Flex world, you can actually open lots of different serial ports, and you can have them on multiple computers at once. So actually, if I had two computers, I could be doing push to talk from one and CW Keen from another, and they could both be talking to one radio or two radios. Flex has made this is pretty easy these days. And if we're doing a RIDI contest, we usually have MMTTY and two-tone available, or if it's a FT8 contest, we'd have a DigiWrite or WSJTX. CW is sent from the loggers, and SSB operates using the digital audio microphone input or speaker back output. So these, whatever it is, 8 things are not really all that complicated. A lot of them are pretty simple, like the web browser and Slack and your normal logging programs. Really, it's just the VPN, the Flex software, and the Tight VNC that are anything different than what you might be used to. Before the contest, each of the operators needs to check their setup to make sure it works, that their log can connect to the radio, can key the radio, log things properly. At a contest practice session before the start of the contest, we then practice connecting the shared logs together and practice how you switch operators on a radio. So when one operator's shift ends, how does he disconnect and the next operator pick up the radio to continue? Here's my setup. Let's just look at the hardware. Headphones. I use a little Flex remote control, mostly as a RIT control. My laptop and a mouse. I use a second screen on my laptop because you need all this extra screen space to make this all work. Let's look at the software, top to bottom, left to right. Up in the upper left here, you see the rotator control kind of window in the web browser. And then I usually keep the RBN network open so I can see that the station is actually being heard. The RF is actually going out and being heard somewhere. Slack is over here on the right in case there's a text message I need to read instead of just listening to my phone. At the bottom of this upper screen, here's the remote desktop that has the amplifier control software. Here's the Elecraft and here's the Alpha remote. And above there is a little watt meter readouts. On the bottom right here is the Flex Smart SDR software with all of its little buttons and control panels to run the Flex radio. Down on my laptop screen, here's basically mostly write log. Here's the band map from write log, the log itself, the entry window, MMTTY for RTTY decoding and the decode window. I usually also have two-tone open, but that would be covering up this other stuff, which is the Flex CAT software that shows the like the serial port connections that are in use, and then the DAX software, which shows the digital audio channels to the radio and back from the radio, which is nice to look at because you'll be able to see the levels of the audio to see that you're not overdriving the radio, for instance, when you're using AFSK RTTY.
Have you measured the total latency?
The latency varies by the operator. When I operate from San Francisco down to Los Gatos, it's only about a 30 millisecond ping. Some of the people in Silicon Valley have much shorter times, maybe 12 or 15 or up to 20 milliseconds.
Well, no, I meant the total received latency through the entire path of the Flex and the internet and the audio processing.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of complications to that. Let me finish. When I'm up in Washington State and talk to the station, my ping time is only about 40 milliseconds. But what really happens is the Flex radios themselves have a lot of latency built into them because they're doing a lot of digital audio processing, digital signal processing, all the ADD conversions. So they usually add about 100 milliseconds just in the audio processing that the radio itself is doing. So, so when N6TV finishes sending, I'll hear him stop sending about 100 milliseconds later than he actually stopped. That's pretty normal with SDR radios these days. I think in the next generation of the radio design and the software revisions, there'll be some more emphasis on reducing that. But at the moment, that's what it is.
Well, that's if you're operating locally, but then the internet's going to add some more latency.
No, yeah. So the Flex maybe has 100 milliseconds. My internet connection from say Washington down to the station's only another 50 milliseconds. So you know, all totaled, it's only maybe 150 milliseconds.
Okay, but I thought the audio processing and compression or whatever did some more.
You can actually adjust the digital filtering in ways that makes the delay worse or better. I think we operate at the better setting. There's ways to have sharper filtering, but the delay gets bigger. That might be something that Chris N6WM would know more about.
This whole latency thing is what we started learning about when we started doing a whole lot of digital processing in live sound reinforcement. The first guy who designed the do everything processor didn't even think about latency, and when they tried to sell it, it obviously didn't work, and he found another productive job somewhere.
It's kind of ironic. Some of the biggest sources of latency is Windows itself. They have something called DPC or direct procedure calls that seem to interrupt various processes and causes major audio latency. It's been a challenge for Flex. It's been a challenge for a lot of different people that provide application services that involve audio on Windows. It's really a Windows problem in many respects a lot of the time.
Zoom does a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think within the last couple of years, a lot more attention has come to the problem, and I think we'll see some improvements there. I know, I think the new Sun SDR radios have a fairly low latency because they targeted that as one of their goals to keep the latency low. Let me talk a little bit again from the operator viewpoint of some of the good, the bad, and the other stuff. Even at low power from K6MTU, we can work Europe and the Middle East from the West Coast, which is fabulous, especially these last couple of years, which I've not been the peak of the sunspot cycle. As you know, we're able to work Israel, Saudi Arabia, Cyprus, Kazakh, even at 100 watts. Fabulous. The station can operate in single op mode, SO2R, multi-single or multi-2, with no one having to go up and visit the station to reconfigure anything. That big switching matrix that you saw on the wall and that Kevin gave us the diagram for really lets us do that. It works very well, and I would say it's automatic, but there are some specific customizations you can do and have Kevin kind of talk to the right switches and make things even better. There's really no interference between those two high power stations working on two different bands, using either the 40 meter and one of the tri-banders or using the two different tri-banders on two different bands. Really fabulous. Those bandpass filters and triplexers do the job. There is, of course, a little bit of interference right when you're on the harmonic between 40 meters to 20 meters, but that's really the only place you see any problem. There's not really a big raising of the baseband noise or anything like that. And the station is fully remote, which means you can make a lot of use of it. You don't have to go drive anywhere. You don't have to schedule time to be off and away to use it. You can operate anytime you're somewhere that has internet. Some of the bad things, operating a sideband phone is somewhat less than optimal. You can't use a voice keyer or stored messages that are keyed by your logger, at least not very easily. And the delay in the audio makes using the audio monitor function pretty much useless. Dave, WD6T, kind of optimized a phone setup for himself, and he may chime in, but I think I got it right here. He used the Mac version of Smart SDR on one computer. He logged on a different computer. He had separate mouse for the PTT, and he had a special audio interface for his headset. So sideband is not really the optimal mode at the moment. I think there's a lot of improvements that could be done there, but most of our operators are not that interested in phone.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Have you ever thought about running the loggers at the station?
We've thought about it, but so far having it on each person's separate laptop seems to work fine. We do have one logs server that everyone connects to, so it's always keeping a copy of the log as well as everyone has a copy on their own laptop. So
what we've found at N6RO is that the solution for the problem that you're having with the macro audio latency is to have the loggers locally at the station at Radio Oakley, and we're VNCing into those computers and sending the F1s through VNC. We're recording the macros locally at the station, so there's no SSB audio latency. There's no phone audio. So just FYI.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and we may try that someday. It would require us to spend more time setting up logging and the connections on a PC up at the shack, and all the computers up at the shack are already busy doing other things. But it's something we could try right now for our mostly RIDI, FT, and CW operating. It's kind of nice for everyone to have their own logger. A few problems with operating CW is we don't have any paddle input. There's really no side tone when we're using computer keying, although I think, as Chris just mentioned before the meeting started, there are some solutions coming along to improve that. And you can also use like a pair of wind keyers and other things, so you can listen as well as send it to the operating station. And the delayed audio on CW sometimes leads to having you double with someone who's a real speed demon on CW. And another thing that's not so good, band changing is kind of slow on the station because those Raspberry Pis have to do a lot of thinking about which switches needed to be switched over so that the right filters and the right antennas are hooked up everywhere. So it can take maybe 3 or 4 seconds to switch bands. It's much quicker to just jump to mults on your own band, but switching between bands might lead to a long absence that you might want to avoid. Kevin probably has some ideas on how to speed that up, but something to be implemented yet. And some ugly problems. When you operate remote, that puts the internet as a critical point of failure in your operation. And when the internet goes down, you have very limited visibility into what the problem is. Our most common internet problems are usually audio dropouts, where the audio will start to sound raspy or they'll start to be clicks. And every now and then the software, like the logging software or the smart SDR software, will go into a delay mode, or it'll freeze up. And then every now and then the radio or the software will just kind of completely disappear as it crashes. The ugly part of this is that to restart and reconnect, get everything going again the way you want it, get back on the band you want it to be on, can often take quite a bit of time, as much as 20 minutes. We had a terrible problem where one amplifier would overheat. Kevin finally realized that the amp's air filters had never been cleaned, and he finally fixed that on a visit up to the station. You saw the nice web page rotator control. It works great, but it had to be improved several times until it was finally reliable and had multi-operator access. So it took a few versions, but thanks, Kevin. We've had problems with the radio. One of them crashed too often and had to go back to the factory for repair. And as Kevin mentioned, we have problems with coax jumpers. The ballons would break from all the wind vibration, shaking all the wires and connections on them. And it seems to be a little hard to schedule antenna work at the site because of the constant wind problems. So big thank you to Hector XE2K. That's all I had about operating. So if you have some questions about operating, or we can get Kevin back here as well to talk about the station hardware and the software.
How do you handle the heat of all those amplifiers and stuff in a metal box?
We have a 36,000 BTU air conditioner.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow is right.
It's been pretty noisy.
Well, it's not noisy for us because nobody's there.
I mean, when you do operate on site.
We very seldom operate on site. It's out of the 4 or 5 years, I think we've operated on site 1 or 2 contests.
What amps are you using now, Kevin?
We got a 9500 and a KPA 1500.
Roger.
So in the software Mark talking about there, it sounds like other than your web-based rotator controller, you're not really running any custom design software. You're mostly using stuff that's
no, almost. I don't think we use any regular software. Almost everything we use is custom.
Well, okay, but I mean, he talked about. I mean, there's the VNC stuff and the flex radio stuff. I mean, he didn't really talk about any of the other customized glue then.
Yeah, that's true. Like, there's a lot we cut out for time.
As an operator, I don't see any of that custom software other than the rotator control. But I think Kevin and the other people have done a lot of custom software to make the antenna switching matrix work, to have the right network connections in the shack, to keep the station glued together and working. But that's pretty much invisible from an operator standpoint.
That's not to be underestimated, though.
Right.
It's complicated to have, we ran into this problem many years ago at K6LRG when we first decided that we wanted to try and do probably what is the first multi-op contesting effort remotely. And N6ML was instrumental in, you know, I'm not a programmer, but he is, and he was able to figure out the logic to try and say, you know, make sure that if I'm on band A, that band B is okay for the other station to be on, you know, based on the antenna that you have. That is not trivial. So that, you know, Kevin and team deserve a lot of kudos for working those problems out and making them invisible to the rest of the operator team, because it's very difficult.
Yeah, I think the operators would say, as Mark said, there's been a period of downright ugly, where a few cuss words emitted over the Slack channel. And we're down to fewer cuss words these days.
So Kevin, if you wanted to switch up to K4 at some point for remote, is that gonna work? Well, you'd have to redo a lot of stuff, but I mean,
no, the K4 is when they finally get to the point where they'll operate remotely fully, they're a drop-in.
Me too.
you think that's gonna work?
Well, the K4's got to get to work fully remote first, but when it does, it's a straight drop-in.
And I'm serious. Me too. There may be a shocker, but I'm on board with that.
So
Me too.
To be using the Ethernet for transferring the band data, the band scope and stuff like, and the audio and all that stuff.
Yeah, as most of you may know, I was working for Bellicraft on the K4 from the beginning. I know the guts of the radio very well.
So it's all going to work.
The guts work, but the software needs to be developed.
Yeah, I wonder how long it's going to take.
Mark, I have an operating question for you.
Yes, Dean.
Kevin mentioned that you guys have mid-tries at 43 feet and 95 feet. I'm under the impression that stacking antennas at the top of a really steep hilltop is counterproductive. I'm guessing that you guys, well, have you guys found the same thing? And if you have, is the reason that you have the two to spray your signal in different directions?
There was lots of analysis of antenna heights and whether they should be separate or phased. In fact, K6TU, who provided lots of analysis, and other people as well. We primarily in contests want two different antennas so we can point in two different directions on two bands, like for 20 and 15 meters or 20 and 40 meters, want to point in different directions. They can be phased together through that big switch matrix, but most of the time I haven't noticed that going to the trouble of phasing them together is worth the effort. Having just one antenna seems to work fine enough. Kevin, any comments on the phasing?
Yeah, I was just going to comment that, you know, our rationale was as you described, Bob, or Mark, but Dean, you're right. Getting antennas to phase on a cliff like that doesn't work so good. And that's one of our work activities for the upcoming antenna season is to, well, right now we're trying to figure out what to do. And that's in a slide that I have, but yeah.
It's interesting because that could be your guys' secret weapon. Because one of the things that we do in N6RO is we phase antennas for the reason of azimuthal diversity rather than for increasing our signal strength. So if you can run both, you know, Europe and JA, say, on 40 meters simultaneously, that's a huge advantage, right? You know, that certainly could be something that could be advantageous for you.
Well, on 20 meters, they don't have two 40-meter beams.
Yeah, well, even on 20, there's an advantage there.
So you know, what's next for us is basically we need to improve the antennas. after every contest, we look through and see how could we have done better. And it all comes back to antennas. And for us, the 80-meter pattern, the height is a big issue that we know about. Dean pointed out that does exist. And we're looking at a second tower that's, we're not sure what we're going to put on the second tower, but we do see that it needs to move back from the cliff edge a bit to fill in a few holes. As Mark said, Stu's done a tremendous amount of analysis, and the initial pass we did was a compromise, but now that we've gotten this much working, we want to improve it.
So what's the actual experience of with the two tri-banders in practice? I would have thought that the one that ironically under many of the conditions you'd experience, the 45-foot antenna might outperform the 95-foot antenna.
It depends upon what we're listening to. So we've had a chance to compare our results, when we hear stations versus when N6RO hears stations. And for some locations in Europe, we tend to hear about an hour later when Europe comes in. But then we find that we can manage to make much farther contacts when we are hearing. And especially when we're pointed at Japan, we'll hear deep into Japan. Mark, do you want to add any color to that?
I think the 45-foot high tri-bander works fabulously. Of course, the 95-foot high one works fabulously too, but certainly not twice better. Either one works great. We can hear really deep into Asia, the XZs and VUs and things that would be really difficult to hear. Usually we can hear them for extended periods of time. We hear them early, we hear them for a long time. So we certainly have enough height, but it's more a matter of in other contests, like a domestic contest, or when we're trying to work Caribbean, are we maybe too high? Do we need a lower antenna that doesn't have such a cliff edge in front of it?
Can I talk about your bandpass filters a little bit? I think you're using high power bandpass filters. I've never gone that route. I've wondered, does that make sense, or does it make more sense to use the bandpass filter between the amp and the rig?
Well, they need it for the triplexer, right?
Oh, you don't have a separate feed line for each band?
Yep.
Right.
Oh, so you have a high power triplexer.
Yep.
We have a high power triplexer and a high power filters. And one of the things that we watch closely is to make sure our IMD is as best as possible, since we are a loud station.
I noticed.
Bob.
Well, I hope I'm clean up there too,
Yeah.
So the triplexer is the three high power bandpass filters plus a compiler, right?
Yep.
Combiner,
yes.
Yeah,
we understood what you meant.
And
quite honestly, you can use the triplexer with the low power bandpass filters. The problem is the anything coming out of the amplifier.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, has anybody switched from, not considering a triplexer, from a low power bandpass filters to high power and seen any giant improvement in interstation interference reduction?
Yes.
Ken?
Yeah, we primarily use traps for keeping one band out of the other, but about 5 years ago, Gary invested in a 403A 80-meter filter.
Yep.
And from there on, we went to a VA6AM for 40, 20, 15. And our 80-meter filter has a problem. It's been in Gary's shop, but we find better reliability out of the VA6AM. He's a very good engineer and a good salesman.
Those filters have loud fans?
Yes.
Well,
the VA6AM ones.
Well, Gary built a controller for our fans that can vary the speed. There's one thing, sort of an aside, this weekend when Chris would transmit on the 15-meter antenna, the fan in the VA6AM high power filter would accelerate and make a lot of noise. I've never seen that before, but I've never been operating during the day in the last 4 years. So
Maybe it's fooling the sensor. So you don't have any low power bandpass filters also?
I wasn't
Yes.
messing around this weekend.
yeah, we have both. Although typically we don't use the NQNs, but we have them, and I'm not sure if we actually get any better improvement. What do you think, Chris?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I think we do. I like to put one in line if there's a full-on multi going on. Just
Yeah,
having the
because we
extra rejection, I think, helps a little bit, but I don't think it's.
Yeah, a multi is a little different from multi-2 in that we don't have to change bands on any radio.
So I don't know if you've ever checked it out, but I can imagine that there's quite a 10-meter harmonic when you're on 20 meters. You're probably not on 20 and 10 too often, but more so.
I don't think it's that bad, is it, Ken?
On CW, it's there. We have more intermod problems on 10 meters.
The passive intermod from neighborhood devices is what's killing me.
Yeah, we have incidental radiators that are never going to be fixed, Bob.
Yeah.
And so, I get crap from other bands on 15, and when it happens, it's coming through on 15 meters from some incidental radiator, and there's nothing, no set of filters can fix that.
Yeah.
I had a fairly clean receive operation this past weekend, although every so often I'd hear this it would wipe out everything on the band, and the display, P3 display would jump up 40 dB. And I didn't know whether it was an intermod.
But guys, we should let Kevin and Mark complete.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll talk about our business.
So I was going to ask ND2T and the other ops if you had any operating comments.
I'll make a comment. Something that you didn't say is that, my home shack is here in Palo Alto, downtown Palo Alto. And what I find different in operating a K6MTU is that K6MTU is very quiet on receive, and very loud on transmit, which is exactly the opposite of what I'm getting from here in the valley floor. And so to my mind, one of the great advantages of that hilltop, is that it's quiet. It's quiet at YX also. I often operate from YX, and YX is significantly quieter than it is, down here in the middle of a residential area. But MTU is that much quieter beyond that.
You ever had any line noise problems up there?
Line noise?
Yes, we have, and we get them fixed very quickly.
Yeah, PG is pretty responsive up there.
Yeah, I mean, we got a hotline PG&E.
Tell them it's sparking instead of arcing, and
tell them the hill's on fire and the radar has a chance of going off the air, and they're there.
Good deal.
Dave can testify to the responsiveness of PG&E there. Yeah, he has as big a generator as we do.
Tom, I just like to know, you were talking about how quiet the location is, and having been down in Southern California, the QRN always picks up there when Santa Ana conditions come in. Do you notice anything like that up there?
Well, I mean, you can hear lightning whenever there's lightning in the world. And I was really talking about QRM, Bob, not QRN.
Okay.
I mean,
I just wanted to comment.
Static, I mean, range static, the 40 and the 40. When it rains under some conditions, it'll take out the 40 meters, which is the top antenna, but everything below it gets shielded.
Yeah.
Dry wind there's not a lot of dust up there, so a dry wind like a Santa Ana isn't going to cause a bunch of.
I just wanted to comment that I think that the photo that Kevin has up right now from my perspective, is a Playboy centerfold.
It's antenna.
Definitely belongs on QST.
Dave, do you have any operator comments?
Yeah, I had a couple comments. Yeah, I would reiterate about the quietness. There are some directions that are more noisy than others when you're pointing, I guess, towards Santa Cruz. But anyway, a couple things I did when I was operating. One thing is, Mark showed the knob that also Kevin designed, and Stu. But I also have this Maestro, so you can hook put the Maestro in smart control mode, and then you get volume knobs and multiple tuning knobs, and that's really nice. And as far as what I did with the sideband contest, I had an audio interface mainly so that I could monitor myself, and I wouldn't end up screaming, which ends up happening a lot when you can't have monitor. You can never monitor through a remote, no matter how low your latency. It's going to be horrible. So you always want to turn that off. That's pretty much all I had to add.
And then WZYK, Ed, do you have any things you want to say?
Oh, maybe just a follow on to this discussion about how quiet it is on receive. That would allow you to hear anything that was crosstalk RFI from the other radio, and all the SO2R work I've done, or the multi-2 and so forth. I have heard absolutely nothing from the other radio, unless you get within 1 or 2 kilohertz, of course, of the fundamental of the harmonic. But it's just been very impressive to me that there's been absolutely no RFI or crosstalk. So somehow, with all the switching and everything that's in the shack, it's very clean and very tight.
Are a lot of ferrites in the shack?
I haven't seen any ferrites, but maybe Kevin can comment.
No ferrites.
It solves the real problem rather than guessing where it is and slapping a ferrite on it.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to compare those 403A bandpass filters with some NQNs.
They're better.
Well, they're higher power, so
They have excellent rejection too, band to band. So
yeah, I have to dig for a bit, but when we first put them in, I did S11 and S21 plots of the W3NQN and the 403A bandpass filters.
Yeah, I can just tell you from an operator standpoint, I wouldn't waste any time doing more analysis or drawing graphs. Those high pass filters, the current setup of the station is absolutely quiet between the two radios. I mean,
well, Ed, it's a little different on CW because on RIDI you're up, above 50, so your harmonic is going to be way up above.
Yeah, well, I've operated a number of CW contests. It's just has not been an issue.
I assume you can hear your harmonic from 80 to 40 and 40 to 20.
No, if you're right on the frequency, you can, but other than that, you cannot.
So how loud is the harmonic from 40 to 20? Or sorry, 20 to 40, or no, 40 to 20 or 80 to 40. I assume it's over S9.
Yeah, it's plenty loud, but it doesn't break your eardrums, and it's obvious on the spectrum scope. You just don't get within 1 or 2 kilohertz.
But fundamental harmonics have never been a problem for us at N6RO. It's the phase noise and the crap from incidental radiators that really cause problems.
Yeah, I think that's what my main issue is, because I can turn the beam and the whole thing changes, and they're all turning together. So I just think I'm exciting different devices in my neighborhood.
Or in your house.
Maybe.
So all of us from N6 from K6 MTU would like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss this and present it.
Thanks for presenting.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great show.
And please pass our thanks to Stu as well, and Pizza.
He's skiing in Aspen right now.
Hey, Kevin, question. The pictures are interesting. Do y'all ever have sightseers? Any security issues?
Jack, I'd rather not talk about that in this meeting.
Okay.
The electrified fence is or the pulse radiator takes care of it.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you helping with the scores for NCCC and some of these contests, and really giving us a shot in the arm.
Great to have you guys back, for sure.